Hello Tarot fans, yes, I have returned. The rumours of my demise were greatly exaggerated. Okay, they were made up. But yeah, I've had a nice time offline for a bit. Thank you all for your lovely messages. Seriously, that was actually really nice of you all. And also I want to thank all of my new subscribers. I'm surprised that people subscribed when I wasn't uploading. But hey, we're now 3 away. Just 3 away from 400. And I'm so happy about that. But that's not what we're here for. Outside of having to promote my social medias, we're also going to be doing a tarot review that I've done for a while. I've been meaning to do this deck for a while. They're quite a cool deck. So without further ado, roll on that intro. Okay, so in today's video we'll be looking at the Tattoo Tarot. Now this came out earlier in the year, maybe late last year, at least that's around the time I sort of picked it up. Now the box itself is pretty cool. This isn't actually referencing any specific card in the deck, it's just a nice little combination of several. And as you can see, it's the old-fashioned classic style of tattoo, the kind of the tattoo you will usually think when you associate with sailors, that style. So got nice little golden edges there, so it just does look really cool. The box around the edges, there's nice designs and patterns, and same with the inside of the box. It's always pretty cool. We've got a book there as well. It's a very thin book. There's not a lot of great detail in said book, but obviously I also like to take a look at the deck. So the box itself is 4.5 inches by almost 6.5 inches. Oops, I can't really see that there. And the cards themselves, got that as a lovely back there. So the cards themselves, we are looking at 5 inches to 3 inches. So that's the sort of size we're dealing with. The card stock itself is quite thick. It's slightly thicker than standard. Now, I always usually say I consider this, as a lot of the stuff I have is Scarabeo, I can kind of consider that the rough standard. So these are slightly thicker than the Scarabeo. So they are a bit of a tricky thing to shuffle. We'll just have a quick look at the book. As I said, the book itself is quite thin, so this is something you could kind of stick in your back pocket without it being too much of an issue. But it goes through the introduction of the deck itself, as most of these often do, and it shows you, it does have a few spreads, so you use the entire deck and just pick out select cards from those positions rather than just having those there, which I always think is which always makes a reading just that bit more interesting. But there's some of the names and titles there, so I might do a video on those at some point. And then it just explains the suits, how the numbers apply, and so on. And then it just goes into the meaning and definition of all the cards. So now we'll just take a look at the cards themselves. So now, first we're going to take a look at some of the majors, and if you do want to see the rest of this deck in full, I'll be doing a flip through video probably next week, and that I have in my reshuffle playlist. So, take a look at some of these cards. So first off, we're going to take a look at the full. Zoom in a bit. So take a look at the full. Now the full's always going to be in these lists because that's my favourite of the cards. And so it's not necessarily having the person looking over the edge of a cliff, but it's more of a little mound. Now once again, most of these you can imagine having as a tattoo. So these would be more sleeve pieces or back pieces, if you do like your nice big bits like that. But yeah, so you've still got your dog, and they're still looking over in the as if to move to make their first step to their new journey. And what you'll find consistent throughout this deck is that the colours and the shading aren't necessarily big, bright and vibrant because of the style of tattoos that they're going for. So we are going for a more kind of traditional colour schemes as well. Now next we're looking at the lovers, and I really enjoy the lovers in this, as you've got them in a nice art. Now this one I can see more as a tattoo than some of the others, in the fact that you've kind of got them in a heart, there's a heart in between them, you've got the cupid and roses there. So actually, if some of you even want tattoo ideas that are connected to tarot, you can just get one of these done. So of course we had to look at death in this, being one of the classic cards. And one of the things I think is pretty cool in the classic tattoo style, the fact you've just got a ribbon that's just kind of going all around it. It's not practical to the actual look of the card for the death card, but it just works in the idea that that's what you'd have in a this thing of that's what you'd have as part of a tattoo. But as a card, it doesn't necessarily add anything stronger to the death card itself, outside of the fact it's tarot, and also the fact it's the classic style of death as a skeleton rather than a robed figure. Now we'll take a look at the devil, and now the devil is really busy in this, not overwhelmingly so, because I always find that sometimes, as I had with the devil card a little while ago, sometimes stuff can just be overly designed and overly drawn. So in regards to the fact that this is a tattoo style, there's more there's more detail in this than you would, not necessarily would need to be, but you wouldn't expect to be this much detail in this, or at least for the style in which they're going for. But it still looks pretty good. It's still doing the Rider-Waite look in regards to the devil rather than to the death card. And we're going to take a look at this card, which is the stars. Now this isn't a card that usually features in my reviews, but once again, because it's going for the tattoo theme, once again it has the ribbon going around the woman who's pouring the water in the lake. And what I like about this, it's still with the ribbon, adds to a thing that you would have as a tattoo. And the stars in the background, I can see someone having this as a tattoo themselves, as with a lot of these. But as I said, these are great. These are great for tattoo ideas. And also, I just like the fact that some of these cards do have tattoos on them themselves. So it's not just here is something to have as a tattoo, but more of, hey, these people like tattoos too. But the artwork in these are, I still think these look pretty cool. Right, now we're going to look at the aces. Now, a lot of the artwork and design in these are simple but detailed, I guess. So, in regards to the Ace of Cups, we still have the doves that are usually referenced in the riders, but they're at the side rather than at the top. And I do like the overflowing of water in this. I always like it when the water flows. That's probably an innuendo somewhere, I'm not quite sure where, but someone's probably laughing now. But yeah, I like the design and detail with the sun on the chalice. I prefer the word chalice myself, but I also like the fact that they didn't just leave this corner blank. They just added a bit of something just to kind of give it a bit of feeling, I guess. And once again, same with the corners here. Now, with the sword, as I said, there's a lot of colour, there's a lot of detail, but not a lot of variant colours. But these ones, the colours feel really bold and stand out, purely because I think as it's predominantly blue with the golden crown, that makes the blue more predominant rather than the yellow looking too predominant in the previous card. But I also like the fact that it's being held by a knight's by an armoured hand rather than just being held up on its own. even though we didn't have a hand when it came to the Ace of Cups. So the wands, I like, once again, the roses look pretty cool, because the roses aren't necessarily something you'd connect with the wand, but once again, as it's going with the tattoo theme, you would obviously get a lot of roses in the classic look. And the idea of the the wand being behind a sun as well also looks pretty good. Now, as I said, this is another one I can imagine, all of these I said I can imagine as tattoos. And last we have the Ace of Coins. I'm not as fond of this one as I am the others, but I think it's just because there's so much I think it's because there's so much real estate, card real estate, being lost in the coin here, when there's not a lot of interesting pattern in the middle, so it feels like this is wasted, and the fact that there's not as much interesting things going on here. So this isn't exact. I don't like this card as much, but it's still obviously still within theme and within keeping of the deck as a whole. So now we're going to take a look at some of the minors, and this is the point where the feeling of the deck and the theme of the deck kind of changes slightly. As we were seeing a lot of Rider-Waite looks, the minors all kind of have more of a Marseille sort of feel. So if you're not a Marseille reader, or they're not really something you are big on, then this might be the bit where this bit might let you down a bit. So first of all, we're looking at the Two of Cups, and I chose this one because first of all, as I said, so a lot of the artwork and design, this is when it starts to repeat. So the artwork is still nice on the cups. The knot has in great detail in regards to the aces, but only because, once again, there's only so much space, and I don't think you'd be able to get as much quality in the picture if them being this size and then taking up the whole card. But I also like the addition of the hearts there. And obviously you've got the little kind of I think we used to call them like stars anyway. So you've got little stars in the corner there. And so once again, they still have that nice, unique tattoo look to them, and these ones feel quite comforting, I guess, really. So next we're looking at the Seven of Swords, and the reason I've chosen the 7 in this regard, because in this deck the swords are in one of two ways. This way, with one on the side and the rest behind, and how the next wand will look, which I'll show you in a second. But this feels very cut. But them doing it, having the swords inside of one, is very different to how you'd usually see swords when you have them in a Marseille style deck. So they're still not really having much detail in picture. However, they're still doing something a little different with the theming, rather than just having 7 swords just kind of next to each other. So now look at the 10 of Wands, and what I like about this is how intricate they are in how they all overlap. Now, once again, a lot of the wands had this look where they were kind of clustered together in this sort of pattern, and I felt like the 10 just stood out as the best way, just because there's, well, basically because there's more of them. But still, it feels not cluttered, but it feels like you can just kind of, it's one you can kind of watch and try and figure out which one's connected to what. Now, some of the other sword cards were similar in design to this, so which is why I chose this, the 10 for the wands and the 7 for the swords. And finally, we're going to look at the 8 of coins. Now, once again, the coins were very similar in not really a lot of things going on outside of just the amount of coins that are on the card. However, I liked this one in the fact that you have a light bulb at the top and a hammer and anvil at the bottom, which does make me think of the apprentice style feel to the 8 of coins in the Rider-Waite sort of style of deck. So this is kind of where this varies slightly from just having a standard Marseille, where there are small images kind of indicating the feel and theme of the card. However, in the 8 it felt a bit more prominent and more recognisable. And finally, we take a look at the court cards. Now, usually I like to pick one court card of each suit for the roundup, so we're only going to have one of each. So first of all, we have the Knave of Coins. Now, as I said before, the characters in this deck do have their own tattoos as well, and I do like the little placings of the neck tattoo and the bit just below the wrist. I do like the little details like that. So obviously this deck was made by people who do really enjoy tattoos and tarot, and this does feel like a labour of love and actual interest rather than just something that they've gone, hey, people like tattoo. Hey, people who do tarot sometimes like tattoos and vice versa. Let's make a tattoo deck. No, this has that feeling of thought and heart kind of went into this deck, and that's how I always feel about this. So I do like the peacock feather there as well. It's a nice little addition there. Now, through some of the coins, you do have the little diamond in the middle, and I think that does kind of add to the sort of overall look and theme to this. And I like the fact he's kind of, he's got his like hair back. He's a handsome lad there, and also just a touch of red in the corners there. So there's just like a little hint, just so it's not overly green, I guess. It's the best way I can describe that one. So next we have the Knight of Wands. I do like his ship tattoo on his hand there, and the fact he has an eye on his helmet there as well. I think that's pretty cool. And the little squiggles of heat and fire there. And I said once again, you still got the colours in the corners there. I do like this one. It does kind of have that feeling of not aggression, but assertiveness. It does have that feeling if this man was to walk into a room, he'd fill the room with his charisma, but more in an assertive way. It's the sort of person who feels like he'd demand sort of respect, but be willing to have respect given rather than ever being forced. Next we have the Queen of Swords. Now, first of all of that sleeve really cool. I know it's not a complete sleeve, but first of all, that just looks really cool. I love the little spider web by her eyes, sorry, and I like the elements of air around as well, just for the clouds. That does look pretty cool, and also the fact that this Queen of Swords once again has an assertive look to her rather than an aggressive or mournful. So this queen is a queen of power and respect, but also not one to you would avoid conflict with her. And I guess I always regret I try to avoid saying stuff like this, but she does have that sort of I said command and respect around her, that sort of thing really. And now we look at the King of Cups. Once again, love the tattoo, love the neck tattoo there, and the fact he has a crown tattoo on his scalp rather than actually be wearing one. He's also got the teardrop tattoo, so maybe he murdered a bloke once, or someone else, who knows. But anyway, I like the wisp coming out of the cup there. That does look pretty good. As I said, most of these I could imagine people having as tattoos. He has that kind of not laid back, but he feels like he's has that feeling of someone who has hopes and ambitions. And you'd imagine him to be a soft-spoken sort of person rather than someone quite, well, as I said before, like assertive. Anyway, so it's been a while since I've done a review. Hope you all enjoyed, and maybe in a few days, maybe next week, I'll be doing a flip through of this to do the entire deck as well. So without further ado, you enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.